Hi, I'm Iman Rappetti. Today I'm chatting to Neotel's Chief Network Officer, Mr. Pravir Dahiya. Thank you so much for coming in and welcome. It's interesting having witnessed the evolution of Neotel over the last 6 years. Your position, particularly over the last 18 months, has strengthened. You're proving more of a competitive force to your rival Telkom. What do you attribute that to?
Neotel has made significant strides over the last 6 years, and especially in the last 18 months, fundamentally due to being a clear infrastructure player in the telecoms industry. By infrastructure player, what we imply is that we've made significant amount of investments into connecting South Africa to the world and bringing the world to South Africa.
I want to talk about the strategy a little bit. I mean, let's just rewind to 6 years ago. You were riddled with problems. You had some massive startup cost issues. There was tough competition. And a lot of critics said that your strategy was way too short-sighted. How much has that really revolutionized to make you a competitive force?
Let me start by giving you a little example. 6 years ago, a broadband internet connection in South Africa used to take more time and money to download a 1-hour clip from the internet than to fly off to Hong Kong and come back and take the DVD and come with. So it's a very significant impact which we've had over these 6 years in terms of both the time it takes now to download any such capacity, or even the cost of doing business over the internet. The main reason for this change, if you look at it, is bringing in a lot more infrastructure into the country. We currently have invested the connectivity into South Africa by investing into 5 different cable systems which connect South Africa to the world. And then within the country, we've invested in creating a 12,500 kilometer optical fiber network.
And you're the only telecoms provider to have access to all 5 undersea fiber optic cable systems. It didn't come cheap.
Absolutely not.
How do you sustain these costs? I mean, these are massive costs.
These are telecoms industry, and the infrastructure costs, especially in the telecoms industry, are extremely high. And it's often compared to an ice cream industry where you put in a lot of money and wait for a long time before returns come in. And therefore, the news which you heard a couple of years ago, that have we made the right investments, are we going to see the turn of the day in terms of making profits, is now happening, because it does take a little time initially to turn the corner in an infrastructure-intensive and capital-intensive business like ours.
When you came in, a lot of the naysayers also said the fixed-line market in South Africa is mature. Even now, I mean, it's been maturing even more. Even with the advent of Neotel, there were established players. Well, one monopoly, Telkom, of course. Yet you are still growing in this arena. Innovation and delivery, the effective delivery that you're able to provide, the key cornerstones of this growth. How are you accelerating that?
The key to success in terms of obtaining better market share is customer service. And we differentiate ourselves both on the ability to deliver better services as well as come up with better products and services all the time.
As you look towards 2013, I mean, we look at your last quarter growth, the results were looking really positive. Things are looking strong. You're in, I would say, a pretty dominant or decisive position where you stand now. You haven't been able to overcome your rivals entirely. What would you say is the key strategy going forward? And part of what I want you to introduce is competition and partnership. And we're talking about Cell C. It's still an early idea, but it is one that is germinating, not so.
One of the areas which we have not focused very well so far has been the, call it the consumer part of the business. It's still about 10% of our overall revenues. And therefore, there hasn't been, let's call it, the kind of discussions you're probably looking at in terms of providing a residential line phone equivalent or a mobile phone equivalent from Neotel as yet. That's an area where we've still not taken any decisions, but watch the space.
Well, some might say, let's talk about Cell C, for example, because part of longevity and sustainability going forward is, linking hands with partnerships that could bring you greater revenue and increase your bottom line. Cell C doesn't really appeal to the market that you necessarily want to appeal to. And some analysts have said that it's actually a backward way of looking at things, that by you allowing them access to your fixed line and wireless infrastructure, they bring in the kind of clientele eventually that you want to talk to. And that's how that partnership can be a quid pro quo, if you will, over time.
You're absolutely right when you say that the target market or the area where Cell C is operating in currently is not something which we've looked at very carefully so far. Our strength has traditionally been to serve the carrier and the enterprise space, which is largely the top end of the market. And that's an area where the other mobile operators have been more successful so far. And therefore, it's quite an interesting argument to make to do a backward integration or something like that.
Let's talk about some of the challenges now. I mean, what are the logistical problems you think are key inhibitors to fibre rollout in the way that you envisage it?
There are 2 or 3 major areas where we could get better support in terms of being able to roll out much faster and be able to provide services quicker. Number one, when we apply to the municipalities to get permissions to build our infrastructure out, it's a little time-consuming exercise. Certain municipalities are pretty forward-looking, and they are able to provide us these services within 3 to 4 weeks, let's say. But there are certain municipalities in the country where it could take up to 2 to 3 months before we get permissions to even start building the infrastructure.
And broader than that, because before you actually put anything down, it's about governance, about policy and regulation. How inhibitory do you think ICASA has been, or how open has it been to, to an arena where you're dealing with innovation and where the law perhaps doesn't cover a lot of the areas that you want to explore?
Absolutely. I think there are 2 main areas where we could build infrastructure. One is through the fibre rollouts, where the role played by ICASA is not that significant, but it's more the municipalities. The other is wirelessly. And we have been able to do a little bit of wireless rollout and provide some broadband services over it. However, one of the areas which could prove to be quite a positive development in that space is if ICASA could permit some, call it innovative uses of spectrum which are available in the market. There are a lot of players in the market who are not really utilizing some of the spectrum which they have access to, and there are some of us who are looking for that spectrum but are not able to deploy services because we have lack of that ability. What would be interesting to see from ICASA is new developments around the spectrum space by allowing us to, let's say, share spectrum, pool spectrum, rent spectrum, rather than everybody just keeps their own spectrum and does probably nothing with it at times.
Well, look, this is a space, of course, money makers like yourself want to see grow, and consumers, of course, who are money savers, want to also see what's in it for them. Thank you so much for your time. Appreciate that. Neotel's Chief Network Officer, Pravir Dahiya.